All right, let's dive into this deep dive on mixed ability teaching. We're going to be looking at a chapter today all about um, creating a classroom where every student can really thrive,
Yeah.
no matter where they're at when they walk in the door. You know, we're talking those classes where you have all kinds of different academic levels and learning styles,
Right.
maybe even different languages and backgrounds all together in one room.
It really is a challenge that most educators face, I think.
Hmm.
And it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But what if we looked at it a little bit differently
Yeah.
instead of as an obstacle, as an opportunity? This diverse classroom is like a rich tapestry of potential just waiting.
Okay, I love that. So this resource talks about the importance of a diagnostic evaluation right at the beginning. We know these are pretty standard, but
Mhm.
are there any tips on how to go deeper with the analysis? Like how can we uncover those hidden needs that might not jump out right away?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think observation is absolutely key here. And I don't just mean watching them do their work. Look for patterns in their questions,
Yeah.
in their frustrations, even their body language. You know,
100%.
you might have a student who can write a brilliant essay, no problem. But when you ask them to give an oral presentation, they
Right.
just freeze up.
Right.
That could point to a fear of public speaking or maybe a learning style that's more hands-on, more kinesthetic than
Hmm.
auditory, you know. And once you see that, boom, you can really tailor your approach to help that student shine.
It's like detective work, figuring out what's going on.
Ah.
So speaking of tailoring our approach, this source dives into differentiation as a key strategy,
Yeah,
but it's more than just separating students into different groups, right?
exactly. It's about understanding that old saying, one size fits all,
Yeah.
doesn't really work in education. Take flexible materials, for instance.
Mhm.
Instead of everyone reading the same textbook passage, you could offer different articles, maybe one's at a basic reading level, one's intermediate, one's advanced, but they all cover the same
Ah, that's a good idea.
core concept.
I like that.
The way everyone can engage with the material
Mhm.
at a level that pushes them
Yeah.
without, making them feel lost or overwhelmed or left behind.
Yeah, I can see so many ways you could do this. It's awesome. What are some other differentiation tactics that this chapter highlights?
Well, one that often gets overlooked, I think, is varied grouping. We tend to think about grouping by ability, which definitely has its place.
Right.
But what if you shook things up a bit? Imagine you pair a student who's a really strong writer with a student who learns best visually,
Okay.
and you give them a project to create a graphic novel based on like a historical event.
Yeah.
They both bring something different to the table, right?
Yeah.
And they can learn so much from each other in the process.
That is way more dynamic than just sticking with ability groups.
Yeah.
All the time. And this idea of like mixing and matching skills, it reminds me of another strategy they mentioned, scaffolded learning.
Ah, yes, scaffolding.
So can you talk a little more about that?
Scaffolding is all about giving students those support structures they need to reach those higher levels of understanding. It's like building a bridge. You wouldn't expect someone to jump across a river in one leap. You'd give them, stepping stones, a railing, maybe even a safety net for those who need it. So in the classroom, scaffolding might look like providing sentence starters for writers who are struggling,
Right.
or graphic organizers to help students structure their thoughts,
Oh, that's a good idea.
or even breaking a big complex task down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
I think scaffolding benefits both the students who need that extra help and the students who are ready for more of a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even for advanced students, you can gradually remove the scaffolding as they gain confidence.
Oh.
And for those who need more help, you can adjust how much scaffolding they get to meet their needs. It's all about meeting them where they're at and helping them take those next steps.
I like that, meeting them where they're at. So this chapter also emphasizes inclusive activities.
Yes.
How do we make sure that everyone is actively participating
Right.
in the learning, no matter their learning style or ability level?
It's all about offering choices and variety. Imagine you're teaching about the American Revolution.
Okay.
Instead of everyone just writing an essay, you could offer different options. Some students could create a timeline. Some could make a short documentary.
Oh, cool.
Some could even design a board game based on like key events and battles.
That's awesome.
The point is to give them different ways to show what they've learned that resonate with them.
Yeah, that's definitely way more engaging than a one-size-fits-all approach.
And it really taps into those different learning styles we were talking about.
Yeah.
The student who's all about visuals might make a great graphic organizer. The student who loves to move around and interact might shine in a role-playing activity.
Right.
It's all about finding ways to make learning come alive.
Yes. Okay, so we've talked about the academic side of things, but
Right.
creating a supportive environment is just as important, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. We can have the best lesson plans in the world, but if students don't feel safe,
Right.
respected, valued, they're not going to thrive. So let's dive into that.
Yeah, let's dive into that. I'm really intrigued by this concept of peer tutoring, which this chapter highlight is a really powerful tool. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Peer tutoring is not about just having the quote-unquote smart kid help the one who's struggling, okay?
Hmm.
It's about recognizing that everyone has strengths
Yes.
and everyone can learn from each other.
Okay, so it's a two-way street.
Absolute.
Both the tutor and the tutee are gaining.
Exactly. The tutor really solidifies their understanding when they have to explain it to someone else,
Right, right.
and they get to practice their communication skills, leadership skills. The tutee gets personalized instruction from someone they relate to.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes students are just more open to learning from another student than an adult.
It's like that saying, see one, do one, teach one.
There you go. Perfect
I get that.
example. And when you build a classroom culture where peer tutoring is just normal, expected,
Yeah.
it becomes a natural part of the learning process.
So it's not just a one-time activity. It's just part of how
Yeah.
how things are done. I like it.
And it creates this wonderful sense of community and support.
Yeah.
It's like you're building this network of learning buddies.
That's a nice image.
Everyone's working together
Yeah.
toward their goals.
Huh.
Okay, so we've talked about peer tutoring, but what about individualized feedback? This chapter really emphasizes that personalized guidance is key to helping students grow.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too because, the word feedback can sometimes be a
Thanks,
little
Jenny.
intimidating. So how do we make it a positive and supportive thing?
I think the key is to reframe feedback as like a GPS for learning.
Okay.
It tells students where they are, where they're going, and how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about just pointing out their mistakes,
Right.
but actually giving them specific and actionable steps they can take to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And those steps should be tailored to each student's individual strengths and needs.
So it's not just a generic good job or try harder.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like very specific.
Right. It's like, hey, I noticed you used these transition words in your writing. It made it flow really smoothly. Now let's see if we can add some more descriptive details to really bring your characters to life.
Oh, that's good. So much more effective than just a grade. Like it really helps students see themselves as learners, not just
Exactly.
grade getters.
And individualized feedback doesn't have to be this big formal thing.
Right.
It could be a quick comment on their work, a little conversation during a break,
Oh, okay.
even a note sent home.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's those little moments that really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this chapter also dives into the potential of adaptive technology, which is super interesting because it seems like there are so many apps and platforms now designed to personalize learning.
It's overwhelming.
How do we actually integrate those tools effectively in a mixed ability classes?
It's a great question because, yeah, it can feel really overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. I think the key is to be really intentional
Okay.
about what you choose to use. Think about your goals for the unit.
Mm-hmm.
What are your student-specific needs? Once you have those answers, you can start to explore those tools that really fit your objectives.
So it's not about just using technology for technology's sake.
Right.
It's about actually enhancing the learning.
Right. And the great thing about adaptive technology is that it can cater to those different learning styles and paces we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Some students might need an app that gives them practice problems, while others might thrive in a game-like environment with, points and badges.
That's a good
It's like having a virtual tutor for each student.
That's awesome. But we can't forget that technology is a tool. It's not a replacement for a good teacher.
It's about finding that balance.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so even with all of this personalized support we've been talking about,
Right.
we still got to make sure we're checking in, seeing how everyone is progressing. And this chapter talks about the importance of regular assessments in a mixed ability classroom.
Uh-huh. I think the word assessment can be kind of scary
I know.
for teachers and students. How do we make assessment a positive thing, not just a judgment thing?
Yeah, it's about shifting our mindset away from seeing assessment as a way to judge or rank students and seeing it more as a way to understand where they're at with their learning and then adjust our teaching accordingly.
Yeah.
It's about getting information that helps us make better decisions about what to teach, how to teach it, and how to support each student in the best way. So it's not about gotcha moments or high-stakes tests. It's about these ongoing checks for understanding that help us provide that targeted support.
Right.
So it can be as simple as a quick thumbs up, thumbs down, check for understanding, or a little exit ticket at the end of a lesson,
Okay.
or even just observing their work, and asking some
So
questions.
it's not this big formal separate thing. It's just part of...
Yeah, it should feel seamless.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love how all these ideas we've been talking about
Uh,
are kind of connected. They all work together
They do?
to create this really thriving environment
Exactly.
for everyone. But let's be real. Managing a classroom with so much diversity, it's a lot to juggle.
Oh, it definitely presents its own challenges.
So what does this chapter say about managing a mixed ability classroom well? What advice does it give?
I think one of the most important things is setting those clear expectations right up front.
Okay.
It's not just about rules and procedures.
Right.
It's about everyone understanding how we interact with each other, how we participate in discussions, how we approach challenges,
So it's really like the foundation for a
Yeah, it sets the tone.
respectful learning community.
Exactly.
And once those expectations are in place, it's all about fostering that growth mindset.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think that's so important, especially when we're talking about classroom management.
A growth mindset is the belief that abilities can be developed,
Yeah.
It's not fixed.
Right.
You can grow and learn.
It's about shifting from I'm not good at this to I'm not good at this yet.
Exactly. That little word "yet" makes all the difference
I love that.
because it tells students that they have the power to improve.
Yeah.
So how do we foster a growth mindset in a mixed ability classroom?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to behavior in those interactions,
Yeah.
it starts with our language. Instead of
Mhm.
praising students for being smart or talented,
Yeah.
we focus on their effort, their perseverance, their strategies.
We celebrate those aha moments.
Yeah.
No matter how big or small, and we encourage them to learn from those mistakes.
Because mistakes are not failures, they're stepping stones
I love that.
on the path to mastery.
It's not just what we say, though.
No.
It's how we respond when challenges come up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
When a student is struggling, we don't just rescue them or let them give up.
Right.
We offer support, we provide scaffolding, we help them develop strategies to overcome that obstacle.
We're like learning coaches.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Guiding them through that process. And the beauty of a growth mindset is that it's contagious.
Yes.
When students see their classmates embracing challenges and celebrating each other's successes, it creates this
Oh, for sure.
ripple effect of positivity.
Yeah, the classroom becomes this supportive ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone feels valued and empowered to reach their full potential.
That's a beautiful image. Like, it's a garden where every plant is given what it needs to thrive.
That's a perfect analogy. Now, speaking of nurturing a garden, let's talk about nurturing a supportive classroom culture.
Yeah, because clear expectations and a growth mindset, those are just the starting point, right?
Yeah.
To really make it work, we need to go beyond that.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
A supportive culture is built on empathy, respect, and belonging.
It's about creating a space where students feel safe to take risks,
Yes.
to ask questions,
Yeah.
and to make those mistakes without feeling judged.
It's about celebrating those differences
Yeah.
and recognizing that everybody has something unique to offer.
Absolutely. But how do we actually foster that kind of culture, especially in a mixed ability classroom where there's so many different personalities
Right.
and social dynamics at play?
Well, it starts with us, the teachers. We have to model empathy and respect in all our interactions.
Lead by example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we create opportunities for them to get to know each other,
Mhm.
to appreciate each other's strengths, learn from each other's experiences.
Right. So we use inclusive language, we celebrate differences, and we build a sense of community
Yes.
where everyone feels valued.
And we don't just talk about it.
We actively build it into our routines and activities.
So, maybe have them share about their cultures and their interests, their passions.
Yeah, or create projects where students with different abilities work together, learn from each other.
Oh, that's a good one.
The key is creating those opportunities for authentic connection.
Because when students feel connected to each other, they're going to be more engaged, more
Absolutely.
motivated.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? Creating that learning environment where everyone feels like they can thrive and reach their full potential.
Absolutely. I think we've uncovered some amazing insights here.
Yeah, I think so too.
But, there's one more piece of this puzzle that we need to explore. Engaging families and fostering our own professional growth as teachers.
You're right, we can't forget about those. Those are essential components.
Yeah, and it's not always easy, especially with everything else that we're juggling
No, it's not.
as teachers. So let's dive into that next.
Okay, let's do it. We always talk about the classroom being like its own little world. Yeah.
But it's really just one part of a much bigger system, right? And that
Definitely.
includes families and the whole educational community.
So true. This chapter talks about building those bridges
Hmm.
between the classroom and the outside world.
Right?
And it all starts with engaging families. But what does that actually look like when we're talking about mixed ability learning?
Well, think of it as a two-way street. We need to keep parents in the loop about what's happening in class,
Right.
how their child is doing.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to give them the tools to support their child's learning at home
Okay.
in a way that really works for their individual needs and their strengths.
So it's more than just sending home a generic newsletter or a list of spelling words. It's about giving them personalized information and resources.
Right, exactly. Like, let's say you have a student who's really struggling with reading comprehension. Instead of just telling the parents, oh, they need to read more,
Right.
you could give them a list of books that are specifically chosen for their interests
Yeah, that's good.
and their reading level.
Yeah.
And then maybe even some specific strategies they can use at home
Right.
to help.
So they can actually help their child.
Exactly.
I love that. And it's not just about giving them stuff, right? It's about actually creating opportunities for them to be involved.
Yes, absolutely. A great way to do that is to invite parents into the classroom. They can observe a lesson, maybe even help co-teach a session.
Wow. Yeah.
This way they can see firsthand how their kid learns and how they get along with their classmates.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps them really understand how those differentiated strategies are being used.
What a great way to build that trust and that collaboration.
Yeah, it really is.
What about parent-teacher conferences?
Ah, yes.
How do we make those more meaningful
Right.
when we're dealing with mixed ability learning? Because it's more complex.
Yeah, I think it's all about moving away from just talking about grades and having a real conversation about the child's learning journey and their growth. So we talk about specific things we've observed, their strengths, their challenges, their learning style, and then, work together with the parents to come up with a plan that supports their needs.
So it's a team effort.
Exactly. Everyone's working together
I like it.
to help the child succeed. And those conversations, they don't have to just happen at conferences, right?
No, for sure.
We can use technology.
Oh, yeah. Email, messaging.
Exactly. To
Yeah.
stay in touch throughout the year.
Yeah,
Share quick updates, ask questions, celebrate successes.
I love it. Technology can be such a powerful tool for that,
It really can.
especially now. Okay, so this chapter also highlights something that can be really hard for teachers: professional growth.
Yeah,
It's easy to get so caught up
it really
in
is.
the day-to-day
Hmm.
that we forget to keep learning ourselves.
Yeah, but teaching is a profession where you have to keep learning and growing.
Absolutely.
You got to stay curious, explore new ideas and strategies, push ourselves out of our comfort zones.
But how do we do that, when we have so much on our plates already? Like,
Yeah.
what are some realistic ways to make professional development a priority?
Well, I think the first step is to really think about where you need more support, where you need to develop some expertise.
Yeah.
Are you struggling with differentiation, for example?
Hmm.
Do you feel overwhelmed by all the technology options out there?
Right.
Once you know what your needs are, then you can start looking for professional development opportunities that align with those goals.
So be strategic about it.
Exactly. Don't just sign up for every workshop that comes along.
Right.
And don't forget about the power of connecting with other teachers,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
networking with colleagues who get it,
Mhm.
sharing ideas, supporting each other.
Like, you're not alone.
Exactly.
We're all in this together.
Exactly.
That's so important.
It is. It's so validating and encouraging to have those connections. And this chapter also talks about reflecting on your own teaching as a form of professional development.
Okay, so it's not just about going to workshops
No, not at all.
or reading books.
It's about taking the time to really think about your practice.
What does that look like? Is it just journaling,
It could be, yeah.
or is there more to it?
Journaling's a great start, but to get even more out of it, you could try recording yourself teaching a lesson
Oh, that's a good idea.
and then watching it back
Yeah.
with a critical eye.
Yeah.
What worked? What could you have done differently?
It's like looking at yourself from the outside.
Yeah, it can be really eye-opening.
And then also maybe have a trusted colleague come in
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
and observe you,
Absolutely.
give you some feedback.
That outside perspective is so valuable because sometimes, we're just too close to our own teaching to see things clearly.
Yeah, that's so true. Okay, so we've talked about observing and reflecting, but what other resources are out there to help us understand mixed ability teaching better and just keep getting better at what we do?
There are so many resources. You've got professional organizations
Okay.
dedicated to differentiation and inclusion.
Mm.
They offer conferences, workshops, online courses.
Mhm.
You've got tons of books, articles, podcasts out there that dig deep into mixed ability teaching.
Oh, yeah, I've spent many late nights searching for lesson plan ideas.
We've all been there. But I think the most important thing to remember is that effective professional development, it's not about collecting a bunch of ready-made activities
Right, right.
or worksheets. It's about really understanding the principles behind mixed ability teaching.
Right, so you can create your own stuff.
Exactly. You want to be able to apply those principles to your students' unique needs.
So it's about building that foundation
Yeah.
of knowledge and skills.
And that learning never really stops.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process of trying things out, reflecting, making adjustments.
It never ends.
It never ends. As we've been talking about all of this, about engaging families, focusing on our own professional growth,
Mhm.
I've been struck by this theme of connection.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean?
It seems like so much of what we've talked about, building relationships with parents,
Right.
collaborating with our colleagues,
Yeah.
reflecting on our practice.
It's all about building connections.
It is, yeah. Those connections, they support us.
Right.
They help our students succeed.
Yeah, it's like a web of support that just goes beyond the classroom.
Exactly. It's a reminder that teaching, especially this kind of teaching, it doesn't happen in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
It really thrives in an environment where everyone feels connected, supported, and empowered to learn and grow.
I love that. Speaking of learning and growing, this chapter ends with a section called Practical Toolkit.
Oh, yes.
It's like a collection of quick wins that teachers can use right away.
Yeah, little things that can make a big difference in your day-to-day life.
I'm always up for those. So what are some of the highlights? What can our listeners start using today?
Well, let's start with something that can be a lifesaver in a mixed ability classroom. Backup activities.
Oh, yes.
Those moments when some kids finish early and others are still working?
It happens all the time. Yeah.
It does. Having a bunch of engaging, easy activities ready to go can make a world of difference.
Like what kind of things?
Think vocabulary games,
Mm-hmm.
creative writing prompts, brain teasers, even just a basket of good books for them to read independently.
Okay, so it's like having an emergency kit
Exactly. You're prepared for anything.
for those moments when you need to fill the time.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it. What else?
Visual aids. Never underestimate a good diagram,
Oh, yeah.
chart, infographic. Visuals can really help all learners, but especially those who are visual learners or who have trouble processing language.
It just makes it more real for them?
Yeah, it brings the learning to life.
Okay, what else?
Rotational stations.
Oh, yeah, classic.
This is a great strategy for differentiation. Set up different stations around the room,
Okay,
each one focusing on a different skill or a different part of what you're teaching.
right. So one station might be reading comprehension, another one could be grammar.
Exactly. And they can move through the stations at their own pace,
Mm-hmm.
spending more time where they need more help, moving quickly through the parts they get.
So everyone's engaged.
Exactly. Another one, bring in real-life tasks. Connect what you're teaching to the real world.
Okay.
Have them write emails, plan events, do role-playing activities,
Yeah, that's a good one.
anything that makes it real for them.
Show them that it's actually useful.
Yeah, because I remember being a student and asking, why do we even need to learn this?
Totally.
So show them how those skills connect to their lives
Yeah.
and their future.
Okay. What about self-reflection?
Ah,
I know that's important, but how do we actually do it in the classroom?
help them develop those metacognitive skills.
Hmm.
Encourage them to keep track of their progress.
Oh.
Celebrate their achievements. Figure out what they want to work on.
So they're thinking about their own thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can give them journals, checklists, or just have a little reflection time at the end of class.
Okay, so make it part of the routine.
Exactly. The goal is to help them really take charge of their own learning.
I love how these practical tips really give students that power,
That's what we want.
They're not just passive recipients, they are
Yeah.
in control.
That's the ultimate goal, right? To create a classroom where everyone feels confident, capable,
Yeah.
and excited to learn no matter where they start.
That's such a great vision. It's so inspiring to see how all these strategies, differentiation, scaffolding, building relationships, fostering a growth mindset,
They all work together.
they all come together to make this kind of learning environment possible.
Yeah, it's not about using one strategy or another. It's about weaving them all together.
Yes, a beautiful tapestry.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. I'm feeling so energized right now. This conversation has really changed how I think about mixed ability classes. It's not just about managing different levels, it's about creating this dynamic experience
Hmm.
where everyone feels included and celebrated.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that we, as teachers, are on a learning journey too.
Yes, we're learning all the time.
We don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
We just have to be willing to keep learning, to keep experimenting, and to keep evolving.
That's what makes teaching so challenging
Yeah,
and so rewarding.
absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but there's one more aspect I think we need to touch on.
Okay, what's that?
The emotional side of teaching mixed ability classes.
Oh, that's interesting. We've talked a lot about strategies and
Yeah.
techniques, but yeah, the emotional piece is huge.
It's huge. It affects how we interact with our students,
Mhm.
how we deal with challenges,
Yeah.
our own well-being.
I think that's a great place to go next.
Okay, I'm happy to share some thoughts on that.
So let's talk about the emotional side of teaching mixed ability classes. It can be really rewarding seeing those aha moments,
Yeah.
but it can also be tough, draining.
It really can. I think it's important to just acknowledge that it's an emotional roller coaster.
Right.
There are going to be moments of pure joy, but also moments of frustration, doubt, maybe even exhaustion.
It's all part of the experience.
It is, and it's okay to feel all of those things. Don't judge yourself for feeling frustrated when a student's having a tough time,
Yeah. Yeah.
or feeling overwhelmed by how many different needs you have to meet in your classroom.
It's normal to feel those things.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
But instead of letting those negative emotions take over,
Mm.
we can use them to grow. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this challenge make me a better teacher?
Okay, so reframe it.
Exactly. Turn those challenges into opportunities to learn and grow.
Good. How do we actually build that resilience? Especially when we're feeling burnt out, discouraged.
For me, one of the biggest things has been finding a community of other teachers who really get it.
Yeah, people who understand.
Yeah, people who understand the joys and the struggles.
You're not alone.
Exactly.
You can share your experiences.
Yes, a safe space to vent, to celebrate, to learn from each other.
Right, like those conversations in the teacher's lounge or those late night texts with your teacher friends.
Exactly. Those connections can be lifelines.
I know, for sure. And we also need to remember to take care of ourselves.
Yes, self-care is so important.
It's easy to forget
It is.
when you're so busy taking care of everyone else.
Exactly. But when we're running on empty, we can't give our best to our students, right?
So how do we actually prioritize self-care when we have so much going on? What does that look like?
Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just take a few minutes each day to meditate, go for a walk,
Uh-oh.
listen to
Yeah.
music, read a book, something you enjoy.
Little things to recharge.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to set boundaries. It's okay to say no sometimes, to ask for help. Taking care of yourself, it's not selfish. It's essential.
Yeah, for you and for your students.
Exactly. When you feel good, your students feel good.
Yeah.
It creates this positive energy in the classroom.
I love that. It's like a ripple effect. We talked about this before, but I think it's worth repeating. This idea of seeing challenges as opportunities for growth.
Yes, absolutely. It's so important, especially when we're talking about mixed ability teaching.
So it can be so easy to get stuck on the challenge.
Yes, I've been there.
To lose sight of all the amazing potential that each student has.
So how do we actually shift our thinking? How do we see those challenges as stepping stones instead of roadblocks?
That's the question.
One thing that's really helped me is to celebrate those small victories, for yourself and for your students.
Oh, I like that. So acknowledge the progress, even if it's small.
Exactly. Maybe a student finally understands a concept,
Yeah.
or they show improvement in their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
or even, you try a new strategy and it works.
It's those little wins that keep you going.
They do. They really do. And they can be so motivating for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
This chapter also talks about the power of asking ourselves empowering questions.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, Questions can change our perspective. Instead of saying, why is this so hard?
Yeah.
Try asking, what can I learn from this? How can this make me a better teacher?
So change that negative self-talk into something positive.
Exactly. Turn it into curiosity, into an opportunity. And you can model this for your students too.
Okay.
When they make a mistake, don't let them get stuck in that.
Mm-hmm.
Help them ask, okay, what can I do differently next time?
Again, that growth mindset. They
Exactly.
keep coming back to that.
It's so important. Mistakes aren't failures, they're learning opportunities.
I love how this all ties back to growth mindset.
Me
It's
too.
really the key to making this work for all students.
It is. It empowers us to embrace challenges, to celebrate differences, to see the potential in every single learner.
And it can transform not just our classrooms, but our own lives, too.
It's so true. All right. As we wrap up, let's think about how we can actually put all of this into practice.
Okay, yeah, we've talked about a lot of great ideas, but what are some concrete steps that our listeners can take?
Well, start by thinking about your goals. What do you want to see happen in your classroom? What kind of learning experience do you want your students to have?
Okay, so have a clear vision.
Exactly. And then you can start brainstorming.
Yeah.
Look back at the practical toolkit we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Explore some professional development options, talk to other teachers, get inspired.
And remember, it's a journey, not a race.
If
We're
it
going to
can-
make mistakes along the way. That's part of learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stay curious, be open to trying new things, and celebrate every win.
Yeah, every step forward.
And never forget, every student has incredible potential.
So well said. This deep dive has been so insightful. I'm excited to take these ideas and start putting them into practice.
That's great to hear. You don't have to do everything at once. Just start small, try one new thing, see how it goes.
Small steps, big impact.
Exactly. And reach out for help when you need it. Connect with other teachers, join a professional organization, find a mentor.
Right, we're all in this together
We are supporting each other, learning from each other.
to help all students thrive.
That's the goal. Well, I think it's time to wrap up.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope our listeners are feeling as inspired as I am.
I hope so too. Remember, every student has a story to tell, a gift to share, a potential waiting to be unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
As teachers, we have the incredible opportunity to create that space
Yes.
where their stories can unfold, their gifts can shine, and their potential can soar.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of education.
Couldn't have said it better myself.